There's a certain kind of villainy that only exists within the walls of an HOA. You know, the type clipboard in hand, fake smile, rules for thee but not for me. In our neighborhood, her name is Karen. She wasn't elected to the HOA board, mind you, but she acted like she ran the whole community. Always the first to report you if your grass was half an inch too high, and always the last to follow any rule herself. She believed the neighborhood amenities were her birthright, especially the pool. The pool was the gem of our small HOA, nicely maintained, surrounded by palms, and with a community grill area nearby. Everyone paid monthly dues to keep it clean and secure, and there were clear, printed rules about its use: no outside guests without supervision, no food or glass near the water, and no access without the official gate code. After some past issues, the HOA had even installed cameras and recently changed the lock on the gate. It wasn't Fort Knox, but it was enough to keep the place from becoming a free-for-all. That is, until Karen decided she was above it all. It was a scorching Saturday afternoon, the kind where the sun seems to sit directly over your head, and the pavement sizzles if you so much as look at it. I figured it was the perfect time to enjoy a quiet swim, maybe read a book in the shade with my feet in the water. So I grabbed my towel, sunscreen, water bottle, and headed over. Before I even reached the pool gate, I heard the noise, loud music, the deep thump of bass that didn't belong in a family-friendly space. As I turned the corner, I froze. The place was packed, at least 30 people, none of whom I recognized. Kids screaming and splashing like it was a water park, grown adults drinking from red Solo cups, and pizza boxes tossed on patio furniture like confetti after a parade. And there she was, Karen, reclining on a float in the shallow end, sunglasses on, drink in hand, smiling like the queen of the neighborhood. I approached the gate and noticed it right away: the new padlock we'd all chipped in to install. Gone, cleanly cut. A shiny bolt cutter leaned up against the fence, practically on display, like some kind of trophy. I walked through the open gate and approached her, dodging a slippery toddler and narrowly avoiding a tossed beach ball to the face. "Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "what's going on here? You can't just relax." She interrupted without even taking off her sunglasses. "It's just a little get-together. Everyone deserves to have some fun. You're being so uptight." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is a community space," I reminded her. "There are rules for a reason. You cut the lock. It was broken," she said with a smirk. "I couldn't get in, and people were waiting. So I did what needed to be done." A guy behind her laughed and popped open another beer. I wanted to yell, to scream, to drag out a copy of the HOA rulebook and read it aloud like the Gettysburg Address. But I knew it would be useless. Karen wasn't the type to listen. Worse, she thrived on conflict. She loved being the center of attention, and confrontation only fed her. So I walked away. Not in defeat, no, this was tactical. I needed time to think. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess in my head. I replayed the moment over and over, growing more furious each time. Her audacity wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. Kids were running around unsupervised, glass bottles floated near the pool drain, and the entire setup was one slip away from a lawsuit. And if someone got hurt, guess who would be paying for it? All of us, every HOA member. I pulled up the HOA app and tried calling the president, but he was on vacation. Figures. Everyone else on the board was either unavailable or too spineless to take action. That's when the idea started forming in my head. Something poetic, something subtle but effective. I didn't want violence. I didn't want revenge that would get me in trouble. I just wanted karma to hit a little harder than usual. So I made a list. A short one: local grocery store, 10 bottles of honey to bags of sugar, 1 giant bucket. Back home, I mixed it carefully: warm water, dissolved sugar, and a generous squeeze of honey. The mixture had to be just right, not too thick, not too watery. I stirred it slowly, thinking about every smug grin Karen had ever given me, every passive-aggressive comment, every time she acted like she owned the place. By midnight, the plan was in motion. The neighborhood was quiet. I walked over to the pool with my bucket, using the code to open the gate because, unlike Karen, I had followed the rules. The pool was still a mess. Pizza crusts floated in the corners. A wet sock clung to the edge of a deck chair like a ghost. I skimmed out the worst of it with a net, just so the water was clear enough for my plan to work. And then, slowly, I poured in the honey water. I didn't dump it all in one spot. I walked the perimeter of the pool, letting the mixture blend evenly. Across the surface, it didn't make the water look different, but the smell, oh, the smell was divine. Sweet, floral, sticky, like a beehive had burst open under the summer sun. I stood back and admired my work. Now it was just a matter of time. The sun crept over the rooftops the next morning, casting golden light across the neighborhood. I was already up, coffee in hand, sitting on my porch with a full view of the pool entrance. It was too quiet for what I knew was about to unfold. The bees didn't come right away. For the first hour, it was just me, the birds, and the soft hum of distant lawnmowers. But then, around mid-morning, I saw the first scout, a single honeybee, hovering uncertainly near the fence. It danced in the air, zigzagging, dipping low, then rising high. I leaned forward in my chair, watching closely. 10 minutes later, it returned with friends. At first it was maybe a dozen bees, then 50. Then the buzzing got louder. The air around the pool shimmered with motion. Bees swarmed lazily over the surface, drawn by the sweet scent I had so carefully poured into the water the night before. They weren't angry or aggressive, just busy, curious, working. By noon, the pool looked like something out of a nature documentary. It wasn't dangerous, not really. The bees weren't attacking anyone, but the visual alone was enough to stop anyone from thinking a casual dip was a good idea. I almost felt bad. Almost. Around 1 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the cul-de-sac. I knew that car. Karen. She stepped out wearing a pink sun hat the size of a satellite dish and dragging a cooler behind her. Her teenage daughter followed, balancing to oversized floats shaped like flamingos. Then came the guests, at least 6 of them, loud, laughing, all clearly dressed for a pool party. I set my coffee down. This was it. Karen reached the gate and paused. She squinted at the padlock, then tapped in the code. When the gate swung open, the group surged forward only to stop dead in their tracks. "What the hell?" someone muttered. A guest backed away. Instantly, waving at something in front of her face, Karen took a few steps forward, peering at the water. Then she saw at the bees. Hundreds of them, dancing over the surface of the pool like tiny golden sprites. It wasn't a full-on swarm, but it was enough to make the whole area look like it was alive. One landed on a cup holder of a float and just sat there, twitching its legs. Karen froze, her face twisting into a mix of confusion and horror. "Oh my God, are those bees?" Her daughter squealed. "They're everywhere," another girl shouted, backing away like the pool had turned to lava. "Just shoo them," Karen said, still trying to act in control. She grabbed a pool noodle and swung it through the air, like a lightsaber, trying to scatter the bees. One buzzed past her face, and she screamed, stumbling backward into her own cooler, which tipped and spilled cans of soda across the concrete. The other guests had already started retreating. One guy tried to fan bees away with a beach towel and nearly fell into the bushes. Someone dropped their speaker, and it clattered to the ground, the music dying mid-beat. "Who did this?" Karen shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is sabotage." I couldn't help it. I let out a laugh. It was quiet, muffled behind my hand, but satisfying in a way nothing else had ever been. Karen stormed around the pool like a furious mall cop, waving her arms, yelling, clearly trying to find someone to blame. She stared up at the security cameras, then back at the water, then at the bees. But what was she going to say? That someone poured sugar water into a pool she had no legal right to use in the first place? Eventually, she gave up and left, dragging her cooler with her, her guests trailing behind in angry silence. One of them said something about never coming back to this crazy place, and another muttered about allergies and lawsuits. The moment they disappeared, I felt a rush of satisfaction, unlike anything I'd experienced in a long time. I didn't need to confront her, didn't need to yell or argue or post in the whole Facebook group. I had let nature handle the situation. By evening, the bees had thinned out. A few still floated around, lazy and satisfied, but the magic had mostly passed. I went back down to the pool with a net and a small bucket of clean water, skimming out any residue, just enough to return the water to its normal state. 2 days later, the HOA president returned from his trip. He called an emergency meeting after reviewing footage from the security camera. I didn't even have to say a word. The video showed everything: Karen showing up with guests, cutting the lock the day before, throwing her party like she was at a Vegas resort, and then showing up again only to be chased away by bees. When she tried to claim she was being harassed, the board laughed, literally laughed. Not only did she get a hefty fine, $1,000 for vandalism, unauthorized guests, and property damage, but she was also suspended from using any HOA amenities for the rest of the summer. That included the pool, gym, and community clubhouse. Karen tried to appeal, claimed it was unfair, claimed she was targeted, but the footage didn't lie, and neither did the damage. She became something of a legend after that. People started calling her Queen Bee behind her back, and someone even taped a plastic honey jar to her mailbox. As for me, I kept my head down, smiled politely when people whispered, and grinned when neighbors stopped me just to say, "Whoever pulled that off, brilliant." The best part, I never admitted it was me, never had to. The silence was louder than any confession. Now, every time I pass the pool, I glance at the water and smile. It's peaceful again, clean, quiet, respectful. No more parties, no more lock cutting, no more entitled chaos. Just swimmers who follow the rules, neighbors who look out for one another, and an unspoken understanding that sometimes, when the system fails, a little honey and patience can do wonders.